scalpel, stethoscope, AI scribe, your medical assistant, GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound. What do all these things have in common? These are all tools. Now, I will say your medical assistant is not a tool, but the idea of having a support team is a tool, and tools are here to make our jobs easier. And yet there are so many conversations right now and so many thoughts that my clients bring to me about whether or not these tools are okay or not okay. Today, we're really going to sit down and dive in, really think about the idea of using tools, where we get stuck, and how to do something differently. If you have been thinking about any of these topics, getting stuck or finding yourself using tools that are not really helpful, today is for you because we are really going to dig in and figure out how can we work more efficiently. So again, when we think about tools, let's think at the basic level. Tools are here to make a job easier, and there are many, many tools that are available to us. But sometimes we are getting stuck in a lot of judgment about whether or not we should or shouldn't be using this tool or that tool, and it falls into certain patterns. At its most basic level, there is a right tool for each job, and there are ways that we can help to streamline. The other point that I want to make before we dive into where we get stuck is to think about ourselves as the experts, as the masters who are choosing what tools to use. This is a different conversation than one that is going on in the general public about the use of AI tools, for example, like ChatGPT. When people who are not masters are using tools, it's different. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but it is different from what we're talking about here. We are talking about us as masters of our craft, choosing which tools we can use to enhance the work that we do, make things easier or more streamlined. I want us to come at this from this perspective because although we don't often recognize ourselves as masters, it's a really important part of the conversation here today. All right, let's dive in. There are three main places where I hear my clients getting stuck, where I see people getting stuck in Facebook conversations amongst physicians, and we're going to talk about each of them. The first thing that I see very commonly is when we have tools available to us, we might be using them, but we're not using them well. And I'm going to label this learned helplessness. Because we train knowing that we have to get an outcome, we have to help our patients, we have to do something and move the situation forward, we are often more satisfied with minimal to no tools because we just know that we're going to get the job done. If you had to perform an emergency surgery and all you had was a not very sharp scalpel, but you need to do this surgery right now, guess what? You are going to do this surgery right now with whatever you've got available because it is an emergency. That is the perspective that we're trained from. But unfortunately, that helps to create some passivity when we are not in an emergency situation and trying to think about how could I make this job easier. Let's just imagine that we have a completely sterile but not very sharp scalpel, right? It is harder to do the job that we are trying to do in that circumstance, and yet we will persist. It will not be the best outcome. It will be slow. It may be a little bit more dangerous. But in that circumstance, if that's all we have, that is what we are going to do. So often, though, we are not in an emergency situation. We do not have a dull scalpel, but perhaps we have a tool that is not quite the right fit. Or perhaps we just don't know how to use the tool well. Perhaps we are only using a small degree of the capacity of it. Sometimes this is because we have an underlying thought, I shouldn't need this tool. I am lucky to have access to what I have access to. I shouldn't need to make it better. This thought pattern is harmful to us because it keeps us very slowed down. It keeps us being less effective at our jobs. And it keeps us stuck in this mentality of, I just have to put up with whatever I'm given and get the job done. I'm going to jump into an example of this, and we can think about this with relationship to an AI scribe. An AI scribe has some basic functions. Sometimes it's embedded in your EMR, sometimes it's not, and they all have different capabilities. Some of them you can dictate into. Some of them will only ever transcribe a visit, but a lot of them are much more capable and dynamic than that if we just learn how to use them more to the needs that we have. I'm going to go through some examples of how I use my AI scribe, and I want to just highlight that it took thinking about using it differently in order for me to see all the places where I could use it. So, of course, my AI scribe can transcribe a visit. So I turn it on, I see the patient, I've put in some context for that patient visit. So I've told it, what did we do last time that I saw the patient and how long ago did I see them? They've got some basic information, right? It listens to the dialogue between us. It listens to the exam that I describe. It listens to what I said we're going to do next. It spits out a visit. It spits out some patient instructions, right? I take that and I use it to help create my note and to create the patient instructions, right? So that is one instance of using this tool. As I got more understanding of what it could do, though, I could see where else it could go. This tool can be used, and I do use it in my coaching sessions. So it listens along as we are talking. It is able to pull out the highlights of the coaching session, even though it is a non-medical encounter. And it is able to summarize them in a way that gives me a quick transcript of what did we talk about, and I'm allowed to, share that information with my client. Here is the summary of what we covered today. It's very helpful. They can reference back to it, right? But I had to think, what else can I use this tool for? I've also started to do some expert witness work. My AI scribe can do dictations. So I sit, and as I'm looking through the record to see what happened, what is documented, I can list out the important details. I can ask it then to create a summary, a timeline. I can ask it to keep track of the page numbers of the record that I'm looking at when I'm describing, so that I can go back and reference this 800-page document and know where that hospitalist note was, right? That is a very interesting way to use this tool. It works incredibly well for that. And again, it took my thought, how else can I use this to help me? I trained, of course, 20 years ago, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital looking at medical records right when our patients were admitted, right? You have to look through all the things, make all your little scribbled hand notes. I've done that, right? I've mastered that, and so have you. We've mastered that. We can use the tool to now make it easier in order to do the same job, but to do it much faster. I don't have to look at my hand scribbled notes. I don't have to remember what goes in what box. I can simply dictate it, and then I get a beautiful printout that tells me exactly what I need to know and when, right? There are very easy ways to use these tools so that we can really leverage the power of the tool, but we have to come at it from the perspective of, I am the master using the tool to suit my needs. I am no longer being satisfied with the good enough. I'm going to use it to help me get things done. You can see that's a much different perspective. Another place where many physicians get stuck when it comes to tools is resistance. Being upset about a tool, feeling like using the tool is cheating, feeling some kind of resentment about the tool. This can go in a lot of different directions, right? It might be that your health organization has added some new feature. That could be Epic Chat or any number of things. It could be an AI scribe that the organization has brought in. And sometimes we are so irritated by something that has been brought in, seeing it as a burden, seeing it as some kind of an intrusion, that we will not use the tool. I can remember instances of this, and I am so grateful that I never had to deal with the Epic Chat, because that just sounds like an incredibly frustrating interruption. but we get to decide how we are going to use the tool. If you are in a situation where you have Epic Chat and it is interrupting you in the middle of your patient care, and it is your masterful professional opinion that is not appropriate, then I encourage you to interact with the tool in the way that you find helpful. People may want to ping you all day, all the time and interrupt your care. That is not appropriate. They would not constantly be knocking on the door, but because this tool has reduced friction, they might. You get to decide in that instance. We don't have to spend our energy being pissed off about it. You get to decide, this is how I use this tool, and it is not helpful in this instance. I'm going to choose, maybe you have an auto message that fires back at them and says, I'm in the middle of patient care. You can find me at such and such time. I will get back to you at such and such time. An auto message, right? You're using the tool within the tool to make it work for you. Maybe there's something else. So maybe again, also people thinking about GLP-1 medications. Now, I'm an obesity and a family medicine doctor. I spend a lot of time talking to patients and other providers about GLP-1 medications. And never before have I seen such polarized opinions about a medication or a class of medications. But these medications are definitely viewed by many, many people as cheating. When we look at something like this, when we look at a medication that is getting at the root cause of a particular disease state, and actually many disease states, but I'm going to stick with the disease state of obesity here, getting at the root cause and giving people a successful tool that they can use to overcome this medical challenge that they are facing, it can be incredibly powerful. But even my physician patients often have to overcome this idea that it's not okay to use a tool, that it is not cheating. Now, you are welcome to have a different opinion than I do. That is fine. That is, what is supposed to make democracy and a civilized society helpful. But in my mind, when I'm talking with people about this particular kind of medication, this is a tool that addresses some very specific physiologic challenges, as well as some environmental, genetic, and learned behavior challenges, right? It is not moral or immoral. It is a tool, and it is a tool that can be incredibly helpful for people when used in the right way. We don't use a hammer to saw wood, right? We have to use the right tools in the right way for the right job. But if we're constantly getting stuck that some of these tools are cheating and we're just beating ourselves up for the idea of, oh, I can't do that, I can't cheat, I can't use an AI scribe, I can't ask my team to help me, I can't take a GLP-1 medication even though I've been struggling for years, we are just making our own lives harder. My friends, let's let go of that idea. Any of these tools, if they don't work for you, if you don't like them, if you don't find them helpful, totally fine. Don't use them. But let's stop being angry or judgmental about the availability of these tools. If you choose not to use AI tools because of your concern for the environmental impact or privacy concerns, that is totally legitimate. But let's let go of this idea that it is cheating, that it is not okay to have helpful tools, that it is not okay to have something that helps to make your job easier. My friends, we can choose to make our jobs easier. We will never get rid of the emotional impact of taking care of the other humans. That is a part of the work that we do, even if you're surgerizing them, even if you are in radiology, right? There are emotional burdens that come with our work. I don't think that's going to go away. But what can go away is reducing administrative burden, reducing the amount of time that you are spending on your notes or your inbox every single day. Let's figure out tools that can make it easier. You shouldn't be typing the same things over and over again. There are tools that can help you. You still need to be the master who helps to interpret the data, who helps to find the resources to help you figure out what to do next if you are stuck, to communicate that information to our patients, to be the person who brings the care, whether you're doing surgery or you're prescribing a medication. You are the master, but using effective tools makes you more masterful. So let's get out of resistance that we ought to do everything the old-fashioned way, the hard way. Let's let that go. Get out of resistance. All right. The other place where people get stuck is overwhelm. My friends, these are hard times we're in. Some of us are drowning in charts and notes. That's my printer randomly turning on and doing something. Apologize for the noise. This is real life. Sometimes we're drowning in our notes. Sometimes we are so overworked. We might be just doing our regular work, but we've got a breastfeeding kiddo at home. We're sleep deprived for one other reason or another. We're caregiving for other people, right? There are lots of reasons why we might be overwhelmed and feel like we can't add a tool right now. It might be that it's not a right now thing. It might be that spending and investing really a little bit of time might help you to get unburied, especially if you're buried under administrative things. You can imagine if you have a lot of open charts and you are able to learn how to use an AI scribe or some other tool that can help you get those charts closed more quickly, that is going to be in your best interest. I'm not saying it won't be hard. I'm not saying that you have to do that. But if we are constantly just feeling like we're overwhelmed and overwrought, and we don't take steps to make something easier, then we are going to stay in that. There is always going to be more than we can possibly do than we are able to do. So if you are feeling just like you're drowning and overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, that is a good time to reach out for some help. Help might look like coaching or therapy. It might look like having a chair side with somebody who can help to show you how to use the technology so that you use it well. It might be turning on our friend ChatGPT and asking it for very detailed instructions. Speak to me like I'm somebody who doesn't know how to turn on the computer and tell me how to use this tool. We can go there. We can get the help that we need in order to get our jobs done. So I hope that that is helpful to reframe the way that you've been thinking about tools that are in your world right now. There are many of these things that I just talked about that are already in place and probably around you. And if you've been thinking, gosh, I'm really having a hard time keeping up with my notes, let's leverage some AI or other tools to help automate some of the note taking that we're doing, right? We are not residents. We are not students. We know very well how to write great detailed notes. We no longer have to do it all ourselves, right? That can be an AI scribe. That can be, a macro sort of tool within Epic, right? Our dot phrases and things like that. There are things that are outside of Epic that function that way. That might be having a real in-person scribe or just leveraging the team members that you do have. I'm going to put a little tangent on there. We all know that we have worked in environments where we have some people who are more and less helpful. And we are so used to often working with the people who are less helpful and not really team members that we do not leverage the people who are team members and who can be taught how to do things dynamically. That's a whole nother topic, but I'm just going to throw it out there as part of this. Let's let things help us do our jobs better. We don't use dull scalpels to do surgery. We don't need to think that we can't use the right tools, that we can't learn how to use them better, that we can't leverage things to make what it can be easier for ourselves. Our jobs are never going to be easy. Never going to be easy. And we did not sign up for easy. But there are definitely, absolutely things that you can make easier. Figuring out what tools do I have? Do I need new tools? How can I leverage the tools that I have better? My friends, that's what I've got for you today. Think about what tools are in my world. How am I going to start using them better? If this episode has been helpful, if you love listening along every week, I would really sincerely appreciate it if you would hop onto your podcast app and leave me a rating and a review. Both a rating and a review helps this podcast to get to more people within the algorithms. Sharing the podcast with someone else in your world who you know would benefit from listening and doing the work alongside you is even better, right? When we share our resources amongst each other and say, hey, I heard this there, it would be really helpful for you to listen to this. Hey, there's a great podcast over here. Hey, there's this book, right? We all benefit. We all need help and support. It helps us to hear things in different ways. So share, share what's helping you, share the podcast, share other things with other people that you know will help benefit them. We all do better when we share with each other. My friends, until next time, take care.